Am I, 20F, in a toxic relationship with my partner, 23M? TLDR. Seeking advice based on numerous points indicating that my boyfriend may be toxic. Am I in a toxic relationship? Background. My partner and I have been together for 2.5 years now. The first year was wonderful. He was so kind and romantic and treated me very well. However, now he rarely says anything kind to me, and I cannot recall the last time he expressed his love for me. I am 20, and he is 23. He works full-time while I work part-time and attend university. I have created a list of all the aspects that have made me unhappy in our relationship, and I want to share it below to gather opinions on whether I am overreacting or if he truly is a toxic boyfriend. 1. Things are always his way or no way. His opinions, morals, and beliefs take precedence over mine, and if I disagree, his views are upheld. 2. I am unable to be myself. I have to keep my past struggles hidden from him because he does not want to hear about them. I have to keep my interests to myself. He dislikes my music taste, refuses to join me at the gym or on a run, and ridicules my hobbies, such as reading. 3. He frequently mocks my hobbies and interests, reading and my favorite music artists, while pushing his own interests onto me. I attempt to engage with his hobbies, like watching the movies he enjoys, but when I suggest he listen to a couple of songs by my favorite artist, he declines and ridicules them again. 4. If I calmly mention something he has done that upset me or try to point out something he said or did that I find unfair, he is unable to take responsibility and instead plays the victim or gaslights me. He either downplays what he said, makes me feel unreasonable, or claims I am being dramatic or acting like a girl. He may also make self-deprecating comments like, "I'm a bad boyfriend, all our issues stem from me," making me feel guilty instead of addressing the issue. 5. He simply shows no interest in my day, what I have been up to, or how my friends are. He sees his friends at least 3 times a week, and I always ask about them. However, when I see my friends, he never inquires about them. The same goes for my day. I ask him about his, and while he shares, he never asks about mine. Sometimes, I even ask him to check in with me about my day. 6. I believe he gaslights me often, but I do not think he does it intentionally. For instance, while preparing nachos the other night, I bought all the ingredients and made the food as I do weekly. I served myself first and, since I was hungry, used most of one bag of chips. He became annoyed because he disliked the flavor of the second bag. I kept apologizing and offered him my plate of nachos, but he refused, continually complaining about having to eat the bad chips. When I asked him to stop being upset with me, insisting I had apologized and asking what I could do to remedy the situation, he gaslighted me by claiming, "I wasn't upset. Why are you making such a big deal? It's just a joke. You need to stop taking me seriously." His tone and demeanor at that moment were most definitely not lighthearted, so I knew he was annoyed by the chip situation. 7. I consistently express how proud I am of him and celebrate his achievements. He recently landed a new job, and I was incredibly happy for him. I called him every day to ask about his experience, shared how proud I was, etc. Yet, when I achieve something, he shows little interest. I beat my 10K record by around 10 seconds per kilometer and sent him a screenshot of my watch. He simply replied, "Is that good?" 8. He urges me to voice my feelings if something has upset me, but when I try to articulate how I feel, our conversations often turn into arguments, causing me to shut down and apologize for fear of being manipulated. He has never demonstrated accountability by acknowledging my feelings or saying something like, "I see how you feel. It wasn't my intention to hurt you, but I will work on it." Note: I consider myself emotionally mature for these discussions, and while I am not perfect and inclined to take accountability for any harm I may have caused him, I have no problems empathizing with his situation, apologizing sincerely, and working on my behavior, even if I do not fully grasp why he feels hurt. Every conflict we face begins with my attempt to kindly express how he has hurt me, but he invariably flips it back on me. 9. During arguments, when I am sobbing on the bed, he simply goes to the opposite side and falls asleep without offering any comfort. 10. In instances where he has made rude and hurtful comments, I naturally react and feel hurt. When he realizes I am upset, he shuts down, gives me the silent treatment, and states things like, "I will never discuss that subject again," or "This is why I don't talk about my feelings, you only get offended." Naturally, I will be offended and hurt when he makes mean-spirited comments. For example, he once referred to my guinea pig as a dead rat that looks like it was stepped on, which genuinely hurt my feelings. When I confided in him about this, he said, "This is why I don't discuss your pets or express my true feelings." 11. There are certain things I am not allowed to do. If I do them, he playfully slaps my forehead. Though it might seem playful, it does hurt, and if I asked him to stop, he likely wouldn't. Get any more tattoos, crack any joints, fart. I literally cannot fart. Not permitted to discuss my bisexuality. It bothers him. 12. He comes to my house on weeknights, and I purchase ingredients, cook dinner, and prepare his lunch for work the next day. He rarely thanks me, only critiques my cooking, which I am still learning. 13. In 2.5 years, he has never posted a photo of me on any social media because he doesn't do that, even after I expressed how much it would mean to me. However, he has posted his best friend. 14. He wants me to change certain aspects of myself, for instance, dye my hair back to its natural color, remove some of my ear piercings, I have 4 not excessive, and refrain from getting any more tattoos. I currently have 2. 15. When I express dissatisfaction with him, he accuses me of guilting him, when in reality, I am merely trying to help him understand how his actions impact my feelings. 16. I am not permitted to discuss any exes or past experiences, as that will upset him, yet he freely discusses his own, even introducing me to his ex. 17. Whenever we argue, he becomes silent while I talk incessantly, feeling the need to resolve everything. I often plead with him to share his thoughts and feelings, but he remains unresponsive. 18. I am a particularly anxious person and occasionally seek reassurance from him, not frequently. I am working on this. I have learned that it is not his responsibility to ease my anxiety and typically only ask for reassurance about once every 2 weeks in the form of, "Are we okay?" A simple yes suffices for me. However, he has banned me from asking such questions because they annoy him, claiming I shouldn't need it. While I agree to a degree, I think occasional reassurance is acceptable. 19. In the early stages of our relationship, he was incredibly romantic and sweet. I had many screenshots of his heartfelt texts that made me feel cherished and special. It has been a long time since he showed that same affection, and 6 months ago, I discussed missing those sweet messages. He told me he was merely pretending to say nice things because, "I thought you wished to hear them, so I just said them." He didn't mean any of it. 20. On that same note, a few months ago, I realized he had not told me he loved me in quite some time. When I mentioned this, he made me feel guilty for bringing it up, saying, "Wow, that makes me feel like a bad boyfriend." He promised to work on it, yet 3 months later, I still cannot recall the last time my partner said he loved me. 21. Every date or activity we engage in is planned by me. He sees his friends several times a week, which I think is essential for maintaining independence in a relationship. But he rarely takes me out anywhere. Date nights are non-existent, and everything we do is arranged by me. In contrast, he organizes camping trips and outings with his friends and never surprises me. I send him texts at 6 a.m. before he starts work, write him notes, purchase him snacks, create TikToks, share uplifting memes, and buy him small gifts. He makes no comparable gestures for me. 22. For 1 year, I wrote around 50 small notes and placed them in tiny capsules. He has opened about 5 of them. These were made a year and a half ago. For our 6-month anniversary, I admit I was eager. I crafted a scrapbook that took hours to complete, yet he has not looked at it since I gifted it to him. It currently sits under his old PS3 in his closet. 23. My younger siblings are everything to me, and he knows this, yet he detests visiting them and finds them annoying. He visibly becomes irritated whenever we go to see them. 24. He is 23, and I am 20. After 2.5 years together, I still cannot discuss hypothetical future plans: traveling, moving in together, marriage, or children. I am not suggesting we need to plan our children's names right now, but he becomes uncomfortable even when I ask if he envisions marrying me someday. 25. Whenever we are together, he simply bullies me. He has instilled new insecurities within me, and I have expressed that he seems indifferent. If I have not shaved my legs, he ridicules me. He mimics my laugh whenever I laugh because it is slightly high-pitched. He calls me pimple head due to my acne and tells me I am disgusting for kissing my dog on the head. I can do nothing correctly. I have pleaded with him to treat me kindly, but he refuses. He insists it is amusing to see me get flustered. My mother has overheard and asked me if I'm okay because his remarks are consistently cruel. 26. I told him I do not feel like he prioritizes me and expressed that he is my number one, yet I do not even feel like I am in his top 3. His response was that he had fallen asleep during our conversation. Minor issues. During arguments, he asks if I am on my period. He mocks my friends and family to my face. He never reaches out to me first through calls or texts. Note, I cannot begin to count the number of times I have tried to articulate my feelings regarding all the above points and more. I discuss these issues until I am exhausted, attempting to help him understand my perspective and offering real-life examples, yet he fails to grasp any of these issues or acknowledge his wrongdoings. Believe me, I have made every effort. If you have taken the time to read all of this, I sincerely thank you. I would greatly appreciate any advice as I am in dire need of it. I know I deserve better, but this situation is much more complicated than it seems, and extracting myself from it would be a nightmare. However, I am aware that this is not an excuse. Story 2. How do I, 41F, see my husband's, 45M, viewpoint better? What to do? What am I overlooking? I need guidance. I typically have a strong marriage, but we have a recurring issue. You need to understand the background for this to make sense. My husband, Mike, 45, male, and I, 41, female, have been married for 20 years. We live in the same state as my family and close to where I grew up because that is where Mike accepted a job. We have relocated within the country several times, but ultimately returned to the state where we met and married. Mike knew and liked my father and brother before we started dating, and he has always had a good relationship with my side of the family. Once we became engaged, I met Mike's family, who live one state away, and our interactions were fine. We do not argue and can be polite, but there is no close connection. His mother is a kind woman, but I do not feel a strong bond with her, as she tends to dominate conversations by discussing her life and other people. I have attempted to share my thoughts and feelings, but she discourages this, and discussions often revert back to her. I have accepted this as her way of managing her relationship with her husband, my father-in-law. I feel very intimidated and frustrated by my father-in-law, who is blunt, tactless, and self-involved. He never inquires about anyone else's opinions and insists that everything be done his way. Whenever he speaks with someone, it seems to be solely to promote his ideas and beliefs. This could be why I sense my mother-in-law feels a need to talk about herself when she converses with me. Mike acknowledges that his father is challenging and wishes he were easier to interact with. He often feels frustrated by his father's rude behavior, which worsens as he ages. Mike and I were married for a decade before any of our siblings on either side tied the knot. My family is easy to deal with, and everyone, including in-laws, treats each other with respect. When misunderstandings arise, we communicate and apologize as necessary. For instance, there was once a misunderstanding between Mike, my parents, and me. We felt Mike had been offended by them, so we discussed it and agreed that it was unacceptable for my family to treat Mike this way. I conveyed our feelings to my parents, who clarified that this was not their intention. There had been a miscommunication, and they tearfully apologized to both Mike and me for hurting our feelings and made amends. Mike even appreciates my brother and my sister's husbands enough that he arranges lunches for them to socialize. Mike enjoys talking to my father and spending time together during family gatherings. While Mike and I appreciate my family, we navigate our lives on our own terms and primarily spend time with our nuclear family. Even though we reside within 30 miles of all my family members, we gather less than once a month. I may see my sisters more frequently when we babysit for each other or meet during the day for other reasons. Interactions with Mike's family are more challenging. Once his 2 brothers got married, their wives introduced drama and complications. One sister-in-law harbors resentment toward me and felt threatened by my presence, possibly considering I had been around for so long, and fabricated stories about me, which she relayed to my father-in-law. Consequently, he would call and demand to know why I had supposedly done these things, which were untrue. The sister-in-law would also make rude comments to me regarding my religion and beliefs, using derogatory language both to my face and to others. Mike attempted to explain the truth of the situation to his father, but it never ended well. The younger brother married and distanced himself from his family until he went through a divorce, after which he reconciled with his parents and lived with them until marrying again. That sister-in-law is less aggressive toward me, but frequently instigates conflicts with Mike's parents. It goes without saying that I do not look forward to visits to Mike's parents' home. Eventually, when Mike's older brother and his wife reached a crisis point in their marriage, she sincerely reached out to apologize for her earlier behavior, explaining that she had acted out of insecurity and desired forgiveness, along with emotional support from Mike and me while they worked on their marriage. Mike's father then contacted me, insisting that I show that sister-in-law how to be a better spouse because he was determined not to allow his son's marriage to fail. The second brother and his second wife have severed all ties with the family. Mike and I have faced difficulties because I dislike being around his family, making visits to them very challenging for me. I have attempted to forgive that sister-in-law, but she displays narcissistic and toxic traits. While she no longer lies about me, she dominates the family dynamic and wields control over Mike's brother and parents, making visits unpleasant. I dread going there for holidays or summer visits, and when we do, Mike often spends time with his father and brother, leaving me and the kids at his parents' house for the day while they go golfing or engage in other activities. The sister-in-law who dislikes me typically finds a reason to leave and return home, leaving her children behind for the grandparents to care for. I have never caused a scene or argued with her. I strive to behave with Christian kindness. Once, during our daughter's christening, I informed Mike I wished to invite only his parents rather than the siblings because I wanted to focus on our daughter and her special day without any drama. He claimed that request was selfish on my part and insisted that he also had feelings and wanted his brother included. Another time, during our son's religious ceremony, I again suggested we limit the invitation to just his parents for the same reason, to keep the focus on our son and avoid the sister-in-law's drama. Once more, Mike reacted similarly, asserting that it was unfair and that his feelings mattered too. While I recognize his feelings are valid, I fear that if we maintain this approach, his interests will consistently take precedence over mine. My mother-in-law claimed that if my siblings were permitted to attend, then Mike's siblings should be included as well. I attempted to explain to my mother-in-law why it was so difficult for me to have the sister-in-law present. She insisted it was more crucial for her to bring the sister-in-law than to jeopardize their relationship with her. When I questioned Mike about his desire to include his brother and sister-in-law, despite their ongoing disputes, he expressed a wish for a better relationship with them. So they came. Drama ensued, with the sister-in-law putting on a performance and claiming illness, thereby minimizing our interactions for the remainder of their visit following the celebration at our home. There have been numerous instances of similar outcomes. Each year, we participate in one of the major holidays with Mike's family. I would prefer not to attend, and Mike is aware of this, yet we go anyway. We have had his family visit for the holidays, despite the challenges this presents for me. Mike often expresses his frustration with his family and wishes they would change. Tonight, another situation arose, and I requested Mike's parents to visit without the brother and sister-in-law. Again, he responded, "But don't my feelings matter too?" I reiterated that his feelings do count, but so do mine, and asked if we could arrive at a solution taking both into account. He asserted that he did not want to leave his brother out, as it would offend this family. I inquired whether his brother's feelings mattered more than mine. He stated that this left no consideration for his feelings. So, here is where I seek advice. How can I recognize his feelings and his desire for a positive relationship with his family when their presence impacts my well-being and that of our nuclear family, and even Mike's? How can we resolve this ensuring both our feelings receive consideration? I genuinely feel that I consistently sacrifice my own wishes in favor of his. I understand why he wishes to maintain connections with his family and nurture a good relationship with them, but it seems elusive. I feel he engages with them based on an image he has created, believing visits will be pleasant. He continually suggests that people can change and I need to forgive them. I'm making an effort to do so, yet they have not changed in 2 decades, and I am exhausted from feeling hurt and having my feelings dismissed. How can I help Mike understand my perspective better? How can I gain insight into his viewpoint? Is there a way to break this cycle? Story 3. Husband, 26M, told me he'll never get on a plane despite knowing and accepting I, 26F, have always wanted to live in Japan. How do I move on from this? I have been with my husband for 4 years now. We got married last year in October. Throughout our entire relationship, he has known that I have been studying Japanese and that I aspire to move to Japan to teach English. I have been working with tutors for 3 years to learn the language and was planning to begin the process of obtaining a teaching English as a foreign language certificate. I started exploring programs I could collaborate with after receiving this certificate and discussing with him more seriously where I specifically would like to relocate. He has never traveled outside the state before, but he has expressed a desire to explore and mentioned that he would love to live in Japan. Suddenly, he looked at me and asked if we would need to have a long-distance relationship. Naturally, I inquired about what he meant, and he went on to explain that he is afraid of airplanes and would never be able to go to Japan because of this. He indicated that I would need to go there alone and return regularly to visit him. I do not understand why he did not mention anything like this earlier. He has known from the beginning that this has always been my dream, and now he claims he thought I intended to teach online. That he did not realize I genuinely wanted to live there. I am at a loss about what to do. I do not believe this is a reason to leave him, but this is something I have wanted to pursue since I was 11 years old. My parents never supported this aspiration, so I had to wait until I became financially independent and stable enough to start formally learning everything. I have invested a significant amount of my time and money into this dream. It was finally within reach, yet he remains unyielding. He consistently dismisses my attempts to devise a plan for us to move there. He claims it is pointless to even try. I really do not know how to proceed. Edit to address some inquiries and reactions. The major point is that the plan was never to move to Japan indefinitely. We discussed in detail going there for 6 months to a year initially, depending on the opportunities available to me when I apply, and then returning for a year or two before considering it again. This was not a one-sided conversation. He even mentioned that it would provide wonderful experiences for our future children and thought it would be exciting if our kids could speak Japanese. I have attempted numerous times to encourage him to learn the language properly, but he always insisted that I could simply translate for him. He knows some basic phrases, and I have yet to get him to learn more. I realize I was vague, but I did not think people would assume that we had not had substantial discussions about it. Even during the conversation where he said it was useless to seek solutions, he expressed a wish that he could go. He has previously mentioned his dislike for planes, but he never elaborated on how strongly he feels about them. We discussed traveling by boat a few times while considering our options. The conversation always suggested that we would assess our feelings when it was time to make a decision, rather than him giving a firm no to either choice. I personally dislike boats and water in general, but I am fully willing to take a boat if it means we can go together. Yes, he struggles with anger management. I know some might say it is not my responsibility, but I have been working with him to help him gain control. I have been so exhausted from work and studying, though, that I have been ignoring him when he is angry until he calms down, rather than addressing it together lately. Many individuals have pointed out how he would accompany me and what he would do while there. We were specifically looking into obtaining a dependent visa for him. If I were to secure a working visa, I should be able to sponsor him since we are married. As for employment, he works as a freelance graphic designer online and can do so from any location. I am dissatisfied with my job and would not mind seeking a different one when we return. Some have suggested it would be social suicide for him and that I would be removing him from everything he knows. He moved to the other side of the state, away from friends and family, less than a year before we met. He does not often communicate with his family, and we see them only once a year. In the 4 years we have been living together, he has had a friend visit approximately 3 times. Most of his friends are online, so there would be minimal change for him in that regard. I am not uninformed about Japan. I have some Japanese friends online and one friend from my childhood who has visited Japan many times. Everyone I have ever known personally who has gone to Japan has stated it is absolutely worth it. Two of my coworkers lived in Japan for several years, got married, and frequently returned to Japan with their spouses. I understand it will not be all positive experiences. Someone also mentioned anime. That is not what inspired my desire. I took a world languages class when I was 11, received praise for my ability to grasp languages quickly, and became overly confident. I believed I could learn every language, travel worldwide, and become wealthy simply by being multilingual. I quickly learned that languages are challenging, but it did not deter my motivation to learn. I self-studied a smaller number of languages for a few years before deciding to focus on one at a time. My ultimate goal is to be conversational in 3 foreign languages before I pass away, and I would love to visit or live in the respective countries for a while. Japanese and Japan simply became the one I found most fascinating. Some may say I do not need to justify myself, but I am frustrated when I tell someone I am studying Japanese, and they respond with phrases in an anime voice. I have no disrespect towards anime. It just is not the reason I want to learn the language and reside in Japan. They are cartoons. I acknowledge that life is not a cartoon. It is becoming increasingly difficult to keep track of all the comments and questions. I will try to go through them more thoroughly and respond to what I see, but I cannot promise I will see everything. I would prefer not to share too much personal information. It may be irrational, but I do not want anyone I know to see this and potentially connect it to me. I plan to sit down with him and attempt to have a much more organized conversation about this either tonight or tomorrow. I originally wrote this post shortly after our conversation and was understandably quite upset. I suppose I was seeking out individuals with similar experiences to guide me through this situation. I hope to understand why he shifted from what I perceived as excitement about the entire plan to expressing his fear of planes and travel in general, as many have highlighted, and stating that he would never go. I will provide updates when I can. I appreciate those who offered kindness and genuine advice, and thank you to those who expressed concern. I am still somewhat upset, but perhaps we can discuss this, and everything will turn out well. I also spoke to my friend about it, and he said he would accompany me to Japan if I do not want to go alone, so I will still have the opportunity to see it when I am ready. Thus, I have plans to go even if my husband does not wish to, though it is disappointing that I will likely have to visit multiple times without him, rather than being able to visit and live there with him for a time. Story 4. I 18M kinda want to give my jealous ex 18F a second chance. My ex and I attend the same class every day, which is somewhat how our relationship started. I still go to the same class as her, but not for much longer. We were together for 1 year and 1 month. During the first 3 months, we were in a secret relationship, only known to our closest friends. I pressured her into revealing the relationship because I felt she was embarrassed to be with me. Before we got together, we came to a mutual agreement that if it bothered either of us, we would disclose the relationship. From the very first day of our relationship, she was extremely possessive, even about friends in class whom she knew personally. We fought almost every day, and I felt like I was acting as a therapist. I had to teach her how to express her feelings and concerns since I couldn't read her mind, which drained me mentally and made me question my feelings for her. We often had arguments about trivial matters, such as when a girl in physical education class was poking my sock with some kind of sharp object. She remained upset for the rest of the day because I didn't intervene. Most of our disputes revolved around jealousy, which drove me to frustration since it seemed unwarranted. I constantly expressed that her jealousy was wearing me down, and she repeatedly claimed she would change and work on it. However, for the first 8 months of our relationship, she didn't view it as a problem. Instead, she considered it quirky and often joked about her jealousy. I felt constrained. For example, at birthday parties, I feared that if I interacted with any female acquaintances, she would become upset. I couldn't engage in casual conversations with female friends, such as joking with a girl nicknamed Dobby, which I had named her before we began dating. When I went out with my male friends, any female attendees angered her, and to avoid fights, I felt the need to lie about my outings, as discussing it with her led to conflicts. There was also a double standard in our relationship. Since I was not jealous, she felt free to do things she would have disapproved of if I did them. When I pointed this out, she couldn't see the issue. At one birthday party, when a waiter gave her a high five, I decided to react jealously as a way to show her how it felt. She quickly became very upset and refused to speak to me. By the 12th month of our relationship, while the jealousy had lessened, she still felt angry and frustrated. After I almost ended things at the 6th month, she realized that her jealousy was a problem. While there was some improvement, it was too late for me. I felt depleted and lacked the energy to continue working on the relationship. I often felt disrespected because when we addressed issues together, the changes would only last about a week before she reverted to her old ways. After 12 months, I ended the relationship. We talked for hours in person, I explained my reasons, and we went our separate ways. Even so, I was unsure if I had made the right choice. We later reconciled for 1 month, agreeing that if it did not work out, we would break up again. During our time apart, I realized she genuinely did not want to hurt or disrespect me. She truly loved me and would have done anything to change. She became somewhat more mature and took my advice to see a therapist because such jealousy is not easily resolved. In the 13th month, I extended another chance out of compassion and genuine love, but I still felt mentally exhausted and believed I deserved better. During my second breakup, she was determined not to let me go and argued that my reasons were insufficient. She fought for our relationship. However, since I felt so drained and disrespected, I was unwilling to return to that dynamic. We broke up, and while she was deeply hurt, I was somewhat mentally prepared for the ending. A few weeks later, she called to ask about my dog's health, as she had been involved in his care. We chatted briefly, wanting to maintain a friendship. During the conversation, I felt a bit inclined toward intimacy and inquired about her view on a friends with benefits arrangement. She indicated that she was open to it, and a few days later, we met and engaged in that arrangement for about 2 to 3 weeks. During this time, I noticed that she had changed and still desired a relationship. I began to consider whether I had made a mistake and if there might still be a chance for us. At the same time, I felt that I missed her, as our friends with benefits situation alleviated the stress associated with a relationship. I want to gather opinions from others regarding the situation and what actions I should take next. There were numerous other events in our relationship, both positive and negative. She is a good friend, and I think I still have feelings for her. We share a similar sense of humor and have enjoyed many good moments together. I apologize for the disjointed nature of my narrative, and if anyone needs further information, please feel free to ask. I will be updating this post.